Hello there. My name is Alyssa Cobie-Nuss, and I am your ISCA K12 level VP. I am currently the K-12 school counselor at Central Community Schools in Elkader. This is my fourth year here and my fourth year as a school counselor. And you can see I've got my contact information here on this first page. And today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some K-12 school counselor resources. I know the other level VPs have also created resource videos for each level, and there might be some overlap, but I hope that there are some things that I can provide that are unique to us as K-12 counselors, as it is a whole different beast being a K-12 counselor, and we need to support each other. All right, so I'm going to start just kind of talking a little bit about me. So my role here at Central Community Schools in Elkader, I'm part of the specials rotation for elementary, and what that looks like has been different every year that I've been here. This year, currently, our specials rotation is set in 3-week blocks. So I have each classroom for about 3 weeks at a time, and then I switch and get the next classroom. So I'll see all of the elementary classrooms in once in each semester. It's not really ideal for counselors. We'd like to see them all throughout the year, but that's just kind of how things shaked out this year. But anyway, I have that time in elementary for classroom lessons. I also am part of the Tier 2 intervention team. I do the high school scheduling and course planning, as well as helping students that want to take dual credit classes through our community college. And I help the high school students with planning for their college and careers, those post-secondary plans. I do individual and small group counseling. I'm also the National Honor Society advisor. And I've also done the mental health awareness team at our school. I am the suicide prevention coordinator, and I also help with Silver Cord, students who do some service hours to earn a Silver Cord for graduation. So first are some resources for all levels that counselors can use. So the first ones listed here are great resources provided by the American School Counselor Association, such as our mindsets and behaviors. I don't know if your school is like mine, but we're really stressing the standards-based grading and formative assessment. So really digging into our standards as counselors, just like teachers do. Something I'm trying to work on, and looking at those mindsets and behaviors really are great to try and drive what I do every day. Again, the ISCA national model, their ethical standards, and position statements. So those are great for to reference for when you're trying to advocate for yourself and for your role. Using what is recommended for school counselors to advocate for what you should and should be doing, and for your role, and maybe what's not appropriate. Another great resource in Iowa is the Please Pass the Love organization. Such great resources for mental health, emotional and social well-being. Lots of resources there. The ISCA email group, if you're not already a part of that, it's a great resource for when you have questions or need resources. The SCUDA School Counselors app is a time tracking app that I will show a little bit more detail next. The You Can Book Me is a scheduling app that lets students or teachers to book a time to meet with you, and it automatically goes onto your calendar. We use Google for everything, so it automatically goes into my Google Calendar. It's really, really handy for making appointments. And then since I am the suicide prevention coordinator, I have also used the model school district policy on suicide prevention to help create our district policy and procedures for suicide prevention. So that's linked in there as well. And then another thing I've listed here at the bottom, I attended a trauma sensitive training a couple years ago, and one of the presenters was Matthew Vasquez, I'm not sure how you say it, from UNI. He's a professor in the mental health, or the social work department, and he presented some skills for de-escalation, grounding, and promoting calm, and their body-based skills. And they are tools that I use with students all the time to help them learn how to de-escalate, to ground themselves, you know, especially those that have anxiety or trauma. And so I've just kind of kept the packet from that. And I think you can find that if you were to just Google that manual and his name, or you can at least find some sort of resources. I'm sure if you emailed him as well, which I have done in the past, you can get that. And I've used it for all ages as well. So, okay. So next I want to talk a little bit more about SCUDA, which is the School Counselor's Advocate. It's such a great tool to use as a school counselor because it follows the ISCA national model in tracking your time. So if you're somebody that wants to apply for a ramp, or just want to try and advocate for yourself in your role, or just become more aware of how you're spending your days, it's a great tool. It's very easy to use. It has a private log that you can note like your daily activities and meetings. You can classify what you're doing, all your activities and work, and the three domains of academic, social, emotional, and career, college and career, and also different topics. Like under social emotional, you can go specific like mental health or suicide, to just get an idea of what kind of topics your or needs your school tends to have a lot of, and it's great data. You can also see your calendar in a monthly, weekly, or daily view. You can get insightful analysis and use of time assessments. So really see how you're spending your time every day or throughout the whole year. Access a best business use glossary defining individual topics and activities of most school counselors. So sometimes it can be hard to define exactly what that activity was, so they do have a glossary, which is nice. And then, so when you use it, and then use it to enter in your activities and your time logs, you can then pull up reports and time analyses like this. And these can be used to advocate for yourself, or just to report to, stakeholders such as your administrators or your school board. This is a report that I had from last year that I used to present to the school board on, how I am spending my time. And it breaks it down in the ISCA model of, you should be spending 80% or more in student services, so working directly or indirectly with students, and then 20% or less in the program management, and then, ideally 0% of non-school counseling tasks, and kind of gives you a check or an X on whether you're meeting that goal. And then it gives you a breakdown, percentages of your time spent in those. So you can see I do have some non-school counseling related tasks, as pretty much the majority of us do. But this can, be a visual to show those stakeholders, how you do spend your time, and then advocate for yourself. If there are things that you should, or are maybe not appropriate for school counselors to do, and it can be very powerful to show. So I just wanted to share that. And this is the breakdown of by like the categories of your different tasks that you spend each day on. So my majority of my time that year was on course selection and scheduling, which, as other counselors that work with high schoolers that have to do scheduling will say, that does take up quite a bit of time. The other one that I spent most of my time on was social issues or peer relationships. So that might have been individual or small group counseling related to social issues or peer relationships. I'll spend a lot of time on post-secondary planning, and other social emotional things that might have fallen into that would have been, maybe they were just having a rough day, kind of like a something that came up that day, or things that maybe don't quite fall into mental health or family issues, but are related to social and emotional needs of the students. And then the check-in and following up. So I would do that usually when I was working with a student regularly. And then you can kind of see the other ones. So yeah, I really like the visuals. I kind of like looking at data and that kind of way of looking at a program and using data to support what you're doing. Okay, so now I'm going to look specifically at elementary resources, what I use anyway. So at our school, we have the second step curriculum that was already here when I got here. Is really the only curriculum, like broad curriculum, that I've used for elementary. I do like it, but I don't use it exclusively. I kind of make it my own with other resources as well. So I also like to use Cosmic Kids, the YouTube channel. Specifically, I like using the ZenDen videos to teach kids about like their brain and mindfulness. And then going along with that, I also do have the Mind Up curriculum for grades K through 8, I believe, to teach kids about their brain and mindfulness and awareness and those kind of things. I loved using those resources for my lessons. I also utilize Teachers Pay Teachers, because why reinvent the wheel? There's great stuff out there. I've mainly utilized resources from Counselor Carey, Behavior Savers, and Proud to Be Primary on Teachers Pay Teachers for elementary lessons, and also individual small group counseling. Sometimes they have stuff for that. There's also a Facebook group for elementary school counselors to ask questions or share resources, and that's called the Elementary School Counselor Exchange, if that's something that you think, if you're part of on Facebook and would like to use that, I've found it helpful as well. So if you have a lot of kids that have anxiety, I know I do this, especially this year with COVID. I have found a great workbook for elementary age kids. It says all the way down to age 6, but I would probably say it's better for a little bit better for the older age elementary kids. But it's called Worry Free Me, Coping with Anxiety workbook. There's some coloring in there too, so that's kind of nice. And then trauma-informed books. These are more kind of like for your own professional development. Our school has done a lot with trauma-informed care. And then, so we've done some book studies, and then I've also had some just back from grad school. So I have a list here: Fostering Resilient Learners, Help for Billy, The Body Keeps the Score, Relationships, Responsibility, and Regulation, and The Boy Who Was Raised as a Dog. All these are great professional development books related to trauma-informed care. And then I have a whole page here devoted for books that I use for elementary lessons. These kind of are sprinkled throughout the year in my classroom lessons. You know, when I'm doing second step or the Mind Up stuff, these kind of get sprinkled in throughout. And so I've got them kind of broken into different categories here. I don't have them linked, I'm sorry about that, but you can, find the majority of these on Amazon, or if you just Google these titles. I really like the ones that go with emotions and mindfulness. So listening to my body and meditate with me are some of my favorites. Got some great bullying and empathy books here. Spookily Square Pumpkin, I always like to do. I tend to focus on bullying and empathy in October, which is Bully Prevention Month. And you can kind of look at some of these other ones. And then I've got growth mindset, perseverance books, and then also some that focus on careers. So yeah, I love to read books to the kids, and I think they're a great way to do counseling lessons. Okay, so for middle school resources, there was a time, my first couple years, I had a middle school class where I got to see all the middle school students. I don't have that anymore, but here are some of the resources that I've used with middle schoolers. Owning Up, excuse me, it's a great curriculum for middle school students. Great, it's a social emotional, bullying prevention resource. It's really all about owning up to our actions, our behaviors, and not just going along with what other people do. And it can talk about some sensitive topics at times, but I think it does it in a good way for school counselors to talk about some of those things with students. I think it would also be great to use in small group settings as well, actually. Teenmentalhealth.org is a website that has a mental health curriculum for middle and high school students that I have really liked using, and just introducing what is mental health, kind of breaking down those myths and common misconceptions about mental health, giving the facts and teaching them about different mental illnesses and about stigma and treatment and prevention. It's only 6 modules, so 6 lessons. Sometimes it takes a little longer depending on how much time you have with them, but I really like that resource, and it's free, so that's great as well. The Lifeline Suicide Prevention Curriculum, usually I use that in addition with the Teen Mental Health program. Can use them back to back. And it's just a good suicide prevention program. For small groups with girls that are having problems with relational aggression or just getting along and being good friends. So Girls in Real Life Situations is a good program for that. I've also used Common Sense Media lessons for, digital literacy or, digital citizenship, and learning about using social media and technology appropriately. Teaching Tolerance. Activities That Teach is a book. Well, actually, there's several versions of the book with lots of like brain builders or team building type exercises and activities that teach different lessons in a fun way. There's one that's about values that I like to do in preparation to talk about their 4-year plan. So it's really fun. It's the value auction block. So that's a good resource. My Next Move, the ONET Interest Profiler. So looking at careers and taking that interest assessment that's, I believe, is broken down by the Holland Code. I like that, to use that one once we get into creating their individual career academic plans. And then there's also a middle school counselors Facebook group called Caught in the Middle School. That is a great resource for middle school counselors. For high school counselors, there's so many resources out there for the college and career stuff, so I'm not going to go over everything because I know The other level VP shared a bunch of those that are great, but I'm going to share some that are specific that I've used. I really like using, you can find these on Amazon, the workbooks routines. So they look very similar, but they don't all have the same authors, but I have the picture here of kind of what they look like. I have the anxiety workbook, self-esteem, stopping the pain for students who self-harm. And I have the one for depression, I think. I'm not sure if that's on there, but I really like using those. They're more kind of the CBT style of counseling, but I usually, for individual counseling, I like to use them, some of the activities, and work through them with students. And then the Iowa College Access Network, Iowa College Aid, sp3.org, ACT, like all the rest of these are pretty much resources for college and career readiness and post-secondary planning. The sp3.org is a new resource for parents. They can sign up on the website, sp3.org, and get monthly emails about talking to their students, their own kids, about college and career planning. And it's generated based on, you know, what grade the student's in and what their current interests and plans are. So it's kind of tailored to their students. And in addition, they get entered by creating an account and getting those monthly updates. They get entered into quarterly drawings for scholarships. So that's really cool. I think they're just random drawings, but very helpful, free resource as well. ACT's got great resources for, you know, preparing for the ACT. Then reaching out to your local community colleges for both, you know, your dual credit options, but also, you know, things like job shadowing and internships, apprenticeships, you know, and then utilizing your career coaches there. We have somebody from NICC that comes once, I think now she's doing twice a month to meet and work with our students for the Career Learning Link. And then the ASVAB program we use here at Central as well for career exploration. And then there's also a Facebook group for high school counselors. And then I just have some recommendations for all of you that are K12 counselors, because our role is not like any other. And there's a lot that gets put on us. So my first thing that I will say is advocacy is key. Advocating for yourself as a school counselor, for your role, you know, what's appropriate, what's not, and for your students, and what's best for them, and for your teachers too sometimes. Using data to advocate, and those ISCA resources. And clear communication, you know, communicating your needs, students' needs, and being able to communicate clearly and effectively with your administrators and teachers and parents. You're just one person in one building for all those students and those families, and communication is key to make yourself visible and make people aware of who you are and what you're doing. Self-care, we hear about it a lot, especially for K12 counselors. I think it's important. And I don't see self-care as, you know, going home and taking bubble baths or going to the spa. I see it as just those small daily things that we do to keep ourselves sane. And one of them for me is I try not to take work home as much as I can. When I leave here, I leave my computer here. I don't bring stuff home with me unless I absolutely have to. Sometimes in the summer it happens, but I had a colleague in grad school who phrased it as, because a lot of times, even if we don't bring our physical work home, sometimes mentally and emotionally we still bring it home. And a good friend from grad school said that he does a visual every time that he's driving to and from work, that there was a spot, a location on his commute that he would visualize either picking up or dropping off his briefcase. So he would dedicate any time on the way home from work that he would allow himself to think about work until he reached that point, and he put down that briefcase. Then on the way to work in the morning, once he reached that point, he didn't think about work until he got to that point, and he picked up that briefcase, and then he allowed himself to start thinking about work again. And I thought that was a great way to set boundaries and take care of ourselves, is to consciously do something like that. Another thing is set small goals and changes. You're not going to, make a whole bunch of changes or get a whole lot done, long or right away. So setting small goals. What are some small things or changes that you can do now to better your program? And then, once you do that, just set other small goals as you go. Because as school counselors, K12 school counselors, it can often seem like we can't be effective at any one level because we're doing so many things at all levels. And so just trying to set small goals and be good at one thing. Try to get really good at one thing, and then you can move on to another area that maybe needs some work as well. Again, don't reinvent the wheel. There's lots of resources out there, lots of things you can implement that have already been created and that you can implement into your program. And then finally, reach out for help and get support when you need it. Don't try to do everything on your own. There are people out there who can help, whether that's, other school counselors, other K12 counselors, other just school counselors in general, whether it's the ISCA board, or whether it's colleagues, other teachers. Definitely find those teachers that you can connect with and talk to, that you trust, that will support you. Find the other staff members who have the same goals as you, to work with to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. You can't do things on your own. Or, your AEA reps, your administrators, school board members, whoever it is that you can partner with to advocate and work for your students and your school and yourself. I think that's all I have for you. I hope this was helpful, and if you have any questions or want a specific resource that I mentioned, you can contact me at the email that was on the first slide. Otherwise, I hope you have a great rest of your year and you stay safe. Yeah, thank you all for watching.